guys, welcome to Sopi Studio Umbiamas, conectando Aruba com o mundo via vídeo podcasting. Conectar conosco, compartilhar ideias e histórias para nos inspirar e para nos abrir. Sopi Studio é a plataforma de podcast na Aruba. Follow-nos no Facebook, subscribe no YouTube ou na plataforma de podcast preferida. Escute o podcast preferido que hora e onde está. Sopi Studio, powered by Credits, botou ideia? Credits educava e prepara a abo para ser um empresário exitoso. De business plan, guia personal e préstamo para negócio até com 100,000 florim. Bira para mês donho com Credits. Sopway, passa na Sopway para o sop, salada, wrap ou flatbread e mais fresco. Com 7 localidades rond Aruba, não está cerca de Ibo. Sopway. Swing Masters, organizando events, conferences of weddings, Mr. de luz, sound, staging, DJ, trussing of flat screen, Swing Masters está claro para ser boa fiesta éxito. Swing Masters. E agora, Sopi Studio é plataforma de podcast de Aruba, está apresentar.
Sincerely Carolina is powered by Lindy Boutique, Proframe, Gelatissimo, Neutrogena, and Purina.
Hi, happy Monday, happy new week. I'm excited about this conversation, about this episode, and about this series. So I am doing a Women's History Month series. So I will be talking about one of my favorite topics. I don't want to say my favorite topic, but it's definitely one of my favorite topics. During the upcoming episodes, I will be talking about women issues and everything that kind of goes with that. However, I do want to encourage you, if you're a man listening, that this does not mean that you should not listen. I would actually want you to listen because we are trying to find ways of educating our community and making it a better place for everyone, but also for women because we have been lagging behind a little bit. So please help us out. Okay, before I continue, I want to say thank you to Sopi Studio for allowing me to talk about whatever I want to talk about. And of course, they're awesome sponsors, Subway, Swing Masters, and Credits, but also my awesome sponsors that definitely let me talk about whatever I want to talk about. So thank you so much, Lindy Boutique, Proframe, Gelatissimo, and Neutrogena. Love y'all. And be pending for special giveaways for this month as well because yes, I mean, if you listen and you learn and participate on Learn and Win Wednesdays, you get to win some fun stuff. So yeah, tune in. So without further ado, I have two real awesome guests. If you don't follow them already on social media, okay, if you want to be confronted and triggered a little bit, but in a very good way, I do encourage you to follow Mandy, like ASAP. And if you want to be flooded with a lot of positivity, but also confronting information that makes you reflect, then please go ahead and follow Joshue. So I will give them the mic now so they can introduce themselves. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing amazing. How are you?
Yay. I'm good. Please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and why you're here today.
Of course. So my name is Joshue Garcia, and I am a content and digital creator. I also focus a lot on graphic design, and I also have other specialties such as performing arts and also modeling. I am here today to talk about the most important topics, I believe, in our society today, which is sexism and feminism. And I am really excited to dive into it.
Yay. And yes, I don't know if I introduced the topic at the beginning. Sometimes I just talk and then I get like super excited. But we're going to talk about what he just said. We're going to talk about feminism and sexism because, yeah, so I'll get into it. But yeah, we'll talk about that. Mandy, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited and nervous to be here.
Woohoo!
So my name is Mandy. I am here to be controversial.
There you go.
Ooh, yes, you are.
So I am currently a master's student at Erasmus University. I'm studying, I'm doing my master's in sociology, specializing in social inequalities. And for the past decade or so or more, I have been focusing on feminism and issues of sexism and how it relates to my personal life and how it manifests in our community.
Yes, and indeed, you know what I mentioned at the beginning, Mandy, your content tends to be a little more confronting that, you know, what we would consider like the mainstream feminist content that we see more of. But I think it's also very important, especially in our community where people are really genuinely afraid of expressing themselves, even as a feminist, right? I hear this way too often and it bothers me on so many levels. But I'll hear people say something like, I believe in equality, but I'm not a feminist. And then I'm like, boy or girl, bye. Like, seriously, like, then you don't believe in equality, right? And I do want to start with that. So I'm going to start with some definitions because I think that that's important. I mean, and then we can kind of go from there and explain and talk about it. But feminism. So what is it, right? So the definition of feminism is that it's the belief that women and men should have equal rights and opportunities. That's it. It's equality, okay? So you being a feminist does not mean that you believe that women are more than men, okay? It actually means that you believe that we are equal and thus deserve equal opportunities. And that also means that we have some catching up to do, and that's where equity comes in, right? But yes, so sexism, however, is prejudice and stereotyping or discrimination, mostly discrimination, typically against women on the basis of sex. Okay, so that is something that we see a lot of, and I didn't look up the definition of machismo, but that's where you actually do believe that men are superior. May it be because of religious belief, cultural belief, social belief. So a lot goes into it, and we can discuss a little bit of everything in there, and then we'll go from that. So I want to start by asking you both, how do you react when people say something like that? When they'll say something like, I respect everyone, but I believe in equality, but how do you respond? Like, what is your internal reaction and maybe like external reaction to these type of comments? Because it's very common in our society.
It actually is. And to be honest, I believe in everyone having different opinions about certain things. However, not when it comes to human rights and treating people with respect and, you know, treating people as human beings. Mm-hmm. Whether you are, you know, whoever you are in this world and however you choose to express yourself, it is always important to treat people as equals. And it doesn't matter whether they believe in something that you don't, mm-hmm. or whether they see eye to eye with you. But what you have to understand is that we all come into this world with different purposes. So when someone comes to me and says, you know, I respect women, but, mm-hmm. or I respect someone of the LGBTQ plus community, but, it's always like, no, there's no buts. You just, mm-hmm. you respect someone.
Or you don't.
Period. Or you don't. So like, there's no but when it comes to respecting someone for being a human being and expressing themselves however they want. So I don't know, it always sort of triggers my fight or flight.
Right?
It always triggers something inside me where I'm like, no buts. Just, mm-hmm. you respect women, you respect men, you respect people of the LGBTQ plus community, period. Mm-hmm. Like there shouldn't be any buts.
Right, I agree. Mandy, how is that for you?
I think as I got older, mm-hmm. maybe I learned more understanding on how people grow and are socialized in a certain context that really fosters stereotypical beliefs on how genders should be and look like and perform, and gender in itself is a performance. We all grow up receiving certain messages from our family, from the media, from religion, at school, on what it means to be a woman, mm-hmm. and what it means to be a man. And these things are not innate, they're not inborn, they are ideologies put on people, and those that do not conform to certain ways of being, mm-hmm. They get policed. And when I say policed, I mean, you can think of being bullied or being shamed because you're not performing your femininity or your masculinity in a very specific way. And so as I got older, I learned a bit more compassion in the sense of, okay, this type of thinking, the stereotypical type of thinking is very, very common. Not that it should be accepted, but it's very, very common in our context that is flooded with these messages. So depending the context, I try now to have a more gentle approach, even though gentleness doesn't really come from me because I get very angry very quickly. But I try and understand all the messages that we get, and these are things that only in the past decade or so have become more popular, and we learn new terms about feminism. So it's really difficult for me to kind of not understand that there are people that are maybe older than me or even younger than me that have not been exposed to the same information as I have. Is it okay that they treat people differently and they see them with a stereotypical lens? No, I'm not saying that it's okay, but I try and be compassionate in how I approach them and saying, maybe this isn't the way to go about things, and that we're all different. Men, women, non-binary people, we're all different, and we shouldn't all be following a certain specific script on what it means to be a person. And we're all flawed. And I approach with compassion, and I hope that the person is open to understanding and listening. And if not, then I take a more harsh approach.
Yes, and that's the thing. I think that you explained that very well. I do have to say too that I have also learned to be more aware of my surroundings. Taking in cultural differences. So also depending on that, how I react, right? And it's not perfect, of course, because like you too, I will get irritated sometimes, and it's just depending on my day and my mood. Some days I'm more compassionate than others, but I am very much more aware that what I can expect from somebody as well. So if you come from, a background that is supposed to be, I don't want to say necessarily liberal, but you understand, I think, what I'm saying. My expectations of what are a little bit higher. So I will, kind of judge you harsher on it if you choose to pick the ignorant road, versus if you come from a background that is very strong, on these cultural ideas where I know this, then I have, the ability to tune into a more gentler way of discussing this. But like you said, it's very surprising sometimes to think, have you really not been exposed to this information, or are you like generally putting in the work not to be exposed to it or not to dig in deeper? Because at this point, I feel like, especially from the younger generation, people who are on social media and stuff, it's please tell me how. I mean, there are campaigns that go on, and I understand if you don't follow somebody like Mandy or like me or like Joshue, fine. But I promise you that during March, a whole lot of people will be sharing, quotes and links and information. So how can you tell me that not even during like these periods where it's flooded with information, you sort of miss things, right? And that is hard for me to grasp. But let's discuss that. Let's discuss our current situation, our culture. Why, Mandy, and I look at you because I know this is part of, your studies, but can you maybe explain to us why it's so hard in Aruba for us to make that switch or move forward on, the topic of equality and respect in general?
Yeah, I would think it would be unfair to categorize Aruba as particularly sexist in comparison to other countries in the world.
Okay, that's fair.
So, we have a history of colonialism. We have a history of very strong Catholic values, which are many times based in issues that can be unequal for gender. If we think about the most popular Bible story, Adam and Eve, who's responsible for causing, the downfall of this paradise? It's women, of course. And I think, a religion based on such an ideology, even if we don't necessarily actively practice being Catholic, going to church, going to mass, and all those things, the remnants of those ideologies stay with us. So, like an important concept to keep in mind, that it's not a very popular concept, but it's kind of on par with machismo. It's called Marianismo. And this is basically the opposite side of the coin of machismo. So it's what allows machismo to foster. And the name Marianismo comes from the worship of Virgin Mary, in the way that women are kind of held as these supposed divine beings, and that they are somehow morally superior to men. And while this has, I guess, some positive issues connected to it, it's also very limiting and restricting. And women have to become these gatekeepers of morality, while men have the power to move through the world a bit more on their own terms, and women don't. So women in these types of cultures are held to a higher standard on their behavior, on their attitude, how they have to hold themselves and be in public and in their personal life, and the sacrifices they would have to make for their families in terms of keeping things together, even if their husband, let's say, isn't doing his part to contribute to a healthy family context. And not to go in much details, but we all know the stereotypical stories from the past of the husband that has many offspring with other people, and that maybe has one addiction to alcohol, and meanwhile the mother has to hold everything, has to care for all these children, and kind of be a martyr, while men are allowed to make a mess
and come out fine, right?
Yeah.
And again, we talked about this last week in last week's episode, where there are so many sayings that go around this, and one of the most popular ones here is, if a woman goes into the mud, she will come out dirty, but if a man goes into the mud, he will not come out dirty. Like, he'll be able to clean himself. So like you just said, we decided at some point, right, long time ago, to create these stories, and please do not bash me for it. But it's so rooted into like our beliefs and everything, as women, how we see ourselves, like the whole idea of our reproductive system, for example, and how our periods are some form of like punishment of what we, our first female ancestor did a very, very long time ago. But it's so ingrained that you just grow with it. And I have to say, I find myself seeing, crap like that sometimes too. And I'm like, nah, this is very scientific, Carolina. No. But it's and now we have like the other aspect of it, right? And I'm really happy you're here today, Joshue, because so there are like these two, I want to say, pretty clear-cut boxes of what like men and women should be like and behave. But then you have people who do not conform to either, And when we talk about fighting for equality, right, and fighting against sexism specifically, we see how it affects other groups like Mandy said, non-binary people, members of the LGBT community. Um, what have you learned? And especially because you're so expressive and you have this stance of like, I really don't care if you like it or not, because what you just said, right? It's either you respect me as a person or not, and that's it. So, how has your experience been in this and kind of understanding, because that's when those women that do conform to that kind of box also come in, because I always said that, like, it's of course it's a lot of men who are like, right, the sexist men or machistas that are a problem, but in my opinion, the what bothers me the most is the women who are sexist and the women who participate in machismo culture, that only like makes the struggle even harder, because if they're not on board,
Exactly. So what do you do? Where do you go from there?
Exactly. But
Yeah.
please do tell me about your experience and how you perceive it, and what you think we should be working on moving forward, to creating that space.
Right. One thing that I am happy to see nowadays is that a lot of the younger generation and a lot of the people like me are not afraid to step out of their, the societal boundaries of what a man and a woman should look like. Growing up in a very sexist and machista culture, it has been sort of hard to see things from a different perspective when that's all you know, and that's basically what you grew up in. At a very young age already, I realized that I am much more on the feminine side, and I do like to play on both ends of the spectrum, both with my masculinity and my femininity. But growing up, expressing my feminine side was really hard, because within this societal grain that we've been, pushed in, something remotely feminine, for example, a male being feminine, is seen as weak and fragile. So growing up, I've always heard the, phrase like, oh my God, you're like very weak, you're fragile, you have to man up, you have to, act a little bit more tough. And inside I was like, why is this such an issue? Why has it become such an important part in someone else's life? Because I'm over here in my own lane and I'm doing the things that make me happy. And yet, with me being content with what I'm doing, it makes other people in such an uncomfortable situation that they feel the need to make an opinion on it and put their 2 cents. And as much as you can, state your opinion on a lot of things, when it comes to self-expression and someone feeling happy with what they're doing, that's where you sort of have to like step out and really think about, hey, is my opinion worth it? Is it going to, bring any sort of good, positive impact into this person's life? So with my experience growing up until now, I realized that a lot of the judgments that I do receive or I have received within the past and till this day stands from a point of insecurities and someone else's judgments being pushed on me because that's what they know. And so I'm really happy that nowadays I see that a lot of the people that I surround myself with and a lot of the people that I see online on social media, they are fighting against these social, what's supposed to be socially correct for women and men. And for non-binary people, I absolutely adore them because they're like, you know what, I don't have to fit in to whatever you have to, whatever you say I have to fit in. I can do whatever I want. I can express myself however I want. I am my own person and I don't need the labels that I've grown up with to sort of judge me into the path that I created for myself. So with my experience too, there was a point where I was like, you know what, I can express myself however I want. And I don't have to let other people's opinion judge me as to who I am as a person. I know who I am as a person. You know who you are as a person. You know who you are as a person. And that's the only thing that matters, is that if I am happy and confident with my decisions, with the way that I express myself, with where I'm going in life, that's my happy place. And that's where I want to continue forward. So with my experience, it hasn't always been easy because I have, felt a lot of self-doubt and a lot of people put in their opinions on what is right, what is wrong. But now I'm really happy that I sort of turned it around where I took those negative comments and those negative judgments and sort of I've taken them all, and now I'm sort of pushing against them with the things that I do. With social media, I'm constantly pushing against the boundaries as to what a man should wear, what a man shouldn't wear, what a man should say, what a man shouldn't say. And I always try to put this positive impact towards people, because I feel like nowadays, especially within the Aruba culture, as much as I love Aruba has a lot of, progressing to do when it comes to ideologies and what is correct and what is, not correct within this sort of topic. I really am trying to push against that and tell, my followers that it's okay if you want to dress up a certain way. It's okay if you feel a bit more masculine than feminine today, or vice versa for any gender, regardless of who you are. So I'm really happy that I've gotten a lot of recognition for it too, where a lot of people, tell me, hey, I love what you're doing, because it gives me the confidence and tells me, I'm doing something right. And I'm really helping someone out there to express themselves and be who they are. And again, it's not easy, because everybody goes through some sort of judgment, and there's always, certain days where it's like, do I really want to deal with them today, or do I just want to shut everything off? But I always remember that this is much more than just about me. It's about us as a society to move forward into a better direction, and hopes that in a couple of years we can see things, without judgments, and being able to express ourselves completely without feeling the need to, listen to other people's opinions. So it has been a long journey, but I'm really happy that I'm where I'm at right now. Really happy.
And I can see that, right? And that's, you said a couple of very interesting things, but what Mandy just said, that need to be almost like police of morality, right? People, for some reason, really feel that, and anything that doesn't fit what they believe goes into, right, whatever boxes they have created or they have learned, they will police it and they will question it. And I do have to say that I find myself policing too, but on the other side, right? Anytime that somebody, is unable to see outside of those boxes, and I police them. Like, why are you not? Whoa, hello, But it's something we have in us, and I love how, because I'm also like that. I would like to think that yes, it takes a lot of energy to fight trolls online and argue with people, and I do this less and less only because I have learned my lessons not to pick arguments with people unless they really want to listen.
Right.
But I do believe that there is an added value, and I do believe that in sharing this information, right? And I'm not saying that if you believe all these things and choose not to share them, that doesn't mean that you are doing something wrong at all. I'm just saying that I do appreciate that there are people who are willing to put themselves out there for this purpose, because it also means being a target, right?
Exactly.
And that sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks, and that also means that people will hold you up to certain standards where you can't make mistakes, where you can't say the wrong thing. Been there, done that through my podcast, and then we learn and we grow. But it's hard. It's really hard to do that. So I think that the idea that we are perceived, and I say we because I think everyone sitting at this table is sort of on the same page on that, that we are perceived as sensitive snowflakes that can break, and that we are angry at everything because we are so sensitive. It's such a wrong interpretation. It actually takes a lot of strength and courage to put these opinions into writing and posting them, and again, being open to whatever comes after that. It's scary. I find myself sometimes sharing something and then being like, oh man, I don't know how this is gonna go, and then somebody says something mean and then I question it.
Yeah.
But then 10 people say thank you so much for sharing this. And then I'm like, okay, so people are reading and hopefully thinking. So for those 10 people that actually said something, another 10 thought about it.
Exactly.
And I think that's very important. That's why I love these talks too. Because it's not easy work, and it's not about being sensitive and fragile. It's actually a little bit more than that, right?
It is. It really is.
I think,
Tell me, Mandy.
honestly, I think it's actually the opposite. I think it
Right?
takes so much strength and courage to be yourself and do what you want to do. And And I think it's so much easier for people to conform, to try and act as particularly masculine and kill off any type of sensitivity that they have inside themselves. I think that's actually the cowardly road, which I feel like a lot of people take. And it's sad because you waste your life not being authentic.
Yes. And also, right, for a lot of women in our culture too, they accept so much because it's conforming to whatever they have been taught, whatever behaviors they have been taught to be accepted from, you know, the opposite gender and the person that they're supposed to be sharing their life with. And like you said, Mandy, that takes a toll on people, and they end up kind of just existing, basically just going, and then, you know, find themselves very often indeed having other troubles such as alcoholism. It's such a big problem here, but what you see constantly, like, that's a problem, but it's only manifesting because there's so much underneath, right? Anytime you talk to these people and they'll casually talk about like serious trauma or serious situations, but they just go with the flow because that's what a man should do and hold and, you know, accept, and vice versa. So I do think that like you said, and like Manny said, I mean, it's maybe not fair to take Aruba and say like compare to, because it's really hard to compare something like that. But it's how we see it in any case, that there is a lot of progress to be done. And yeah, I mean, what do y'all have in mind? Like, what is something that should happen or needs to happen in Aruba?
Where do we
For
start?
like, yes,
Check
I
out the
mean,
list.
please let me know. And I just want to say real quick that in 2 weeks we'll be talking about gender policies. Okay, Aruba is having its first gender policy, and I'm really excited to talk to Ms. Jocelyn about it. I know Jocelyn for a while, so it's really nice to hear about that. So we will be talking about that in 2 weeks. But what do we think needs to happen? I mean, Mandy, Joshue, I mean, I have a lot of things in my mind too. Anything from, you know, just letting people be. I think that because we're in such a collective culture, we love living people's lives.
Exactly. That's literally where I was going to take it. You took the words right out of my mouth. No, it's true. It's like because we are such a small island and everybody knows literally everything about everyone. And I think that also makes it really hard for someone to step into their truth and to live, you know, their lives the way that they want to. I know there's a lot of people here who want to express themselves the way they want. You know, they want to express themselves with, you know, pride and confidence and as the person that they are. But because of constant judgments coming from close friends, close relatives, you know, people that they surround themselves constantly with, they feel that they're trapped in the sense of, if I do this, it might trigger them. And it might all just fall on me, and I might, feel alone afterwards, and I might have to deal with a lot of judgments and, all of that. And that's where, that's where a lot of people just hold back, and they say, you know what, I rather just live a life that they want me to live, or a life that they expect me to live, just so I won't have to deal with the backlash afterwards, or, the constant judgments and people constantly telling me, hey, this is wrong. Hey, this is right. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, so, it's hard. It's hard here on Aruba. There's rumors spread like wildfires here. Opinions spread like absolute, like,
Yep.
Like you can literally post something in the morning, and then in the evening time, you literally have an entire press just like surrounding that one little bit that you said. And it's crazy. It's crazy sometimes that. Also, people here, they love dabbling into chisme. And
Yes.
and like rumors,
gossip,
and gossip,
right?
and all of that. So I don't know. Sometimes it's really hard. It's really hard to. You really have to think 5 times before you say certain things and do certain things.
Of course. And like you said, that idea of gossip. And I think that a lot of that has to do with people not living their true selves. So anytime that somebody does something that they can sit together and judge and not have the light be, shown onto themselves, they'll take it. People will sit and, talk trash about other people only not to have to reflect on their own lives and what's going on in their lives that they should be questioning. So I have seen this behavior a lot, and it's kind of it has been, I want to say, very almost like traumatizing, really, to realize that you do think twice. Like you said, the moment you experience that, right, when you're in a group and this one thing happened and it starts to go around and people's reaction to it, you almost panic because you're sitting at a table or you're hanging out with people, and then immediately you realize that your thoughts are not aligned with theirs, and you're like, oh shit. Like, am I crazy now? Like, wait, what?
Am I the psychotic one here?
And then you wonder, like, should I start asking questions or no? Like a couple days ago, we had this video go viral about two, women fighting each other, and I saw it, and I do have to say I am guilty. I shared it, of course, with it came in one group and I shared it to the other group, but I didn't say anything with it. I just wanted to, my first reaction was literally like, what the fuck's going on? This is crazy in the sense of like, how toxic does the situation have to be for it to reach that point, right? Literally. And then, I see the joke starting coming in, and I'm like, okay, maybe Karina, you're thinking too far about this, and this is like, maybe you should not take it this serious, and maybe you're overthinking it. But then I saw what you said, right? The press is making jokes about it, and I'm like, okay, so is nobody concerned with the fact that there has to be something completely, absolutely, wrong or very concerning going on for somebody to climb out of their car window into another window, right? That's like, how can I help kind of thing. Like, how did you get to this point? What can we do about it? Instead of like, it's like, maybe they don't have oat milk.
Yeah.
No, and
true.
Of course it's funny, but but I almost
true.
feel like, are we deflecting, right, the reality that this is so common and shouldn't be? That we why?
Have you seen the video?
I have.
Yeah.
I think it's part of the general internet culture that today we're sharing it and we're talking about it, and then tomorrow there's another funny
issue.
Thing. Someone fell, or someone said the wrong thing, or wore the wrong thing, or gestured the wrong thing, and then everybody's making a meme out of it and making fun of it.
Yeah.
I do think it's just a culture of distracting ourselves from everything bad happening in the world and our personal lives, the pandemic and everything. I think people focus so much on social media and distracting themselves so they don't have to sit alone with their thoughts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's true.
And that is something that, it's also, after that, I was talking to my mom and then to like my nieces about this thing. And then, they were saying like, oh my gosh, it's like, I've never or I don't think they said had to, but that they believe that it's kind of absurd, how a lot of women in our society fight for man, basically, right? Or like man issues. And we were talking about that, and I was like, this is so absurd, but we have internalized like these behaviors as normal, as part of like, what we expect from relationships between two genders, and what kind of goes into it. The whole idea of, when do we respect people and how, based on what terms. So I think it was it prompted a lot of really good conversations for me. So I'm glad, of course, it went viral and it got to my phone, because otherwise I wouldn't have had these conversations. But I do hope that a lot of other people also thought about how often we do this, right?
Yeah.
We see things in the news and, oh, these are passionate crimes. And I'm like, what?
What? Explain yourself.
Yeah, husband runs over wife with car. Passionate crime.
Make that make sense.
Make that
somewhere.
make sense. Mandy, can you make it make sense to us?
No.
And I'm asking you, you know.
But I can explain.
Please
some of
explain.
it,
How have we gotten to the point where we think that, you know, and then you'll see the comments going somewhere along the lines of like, but did she cheat? Then she deserves it.
I don't normalize violence.
Okay.
But I think in general, if we think about it in terms of power, the power and the resources that we get, if we're, let's say, married to someone with a stable income, if we have children with them, you know, I think scarce resources, and with scarce resources, I mean the marriage market and the amount of available men that can provide, also contribute in the home and be a good father and those things. It's not easy, and I feel like it makes some people, you lose your head, let's say, if anything goes wrong in terms of that, because we're all socialized to, women in particular, socialized to accept that, you know, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have children and live this happily ever after life. And that's just not in line with reality or what's even available out there for many of us. So I think men are kind of seen as these scarce resources that we have to fight over. And many times they're not even worth it. But but yes, I think it's in line with a lot of that behavior of like, I want a partner. You know, people can't necessarily afford to have a certain lifestyle on their own with one salary. So I think I see it in economic terms also, not only romantic. You know, like love doesn't pay the bills. It's hard work and I think thinking strategically. But
true.
that's my 2 cents. That is also based on academic research.
Yes, and I think that's a very important thing. Couple of things that you mentioned there, right? So it's, and I was reading, of course, I was read before we talk about things, but you know, there's a lot of research that shows that the issue about gender inequality lies with capitalism and the whole idea that, you know, you have to attain this life and then you have to do everything at all costs to attain that. And then people will attain that. And of course, because you didn't do it for the right reasons, you'll have another hole inside and be like, this was not enough. And then you'll go and do everything that you have to do at all costs to achieve or, you know, get this other thing. So it's a very toxic cycle, vicious cycle that we are in. And it starts from a very young age. And I see it, you know, girls are taught that, you know, be a certain way, behave a certain way so you can find, you know, this perfect man who will respect you, etc., etc. So the respect only comes from XYZ behavior.
Right. And I honestly think it's sad that from a very young age, we're teaching girls that instead of teaching, you know, little boys to respect women as well. So
Period.
It all sort of falls on the girls like, hey, you have to behave a certain way. Otherwise, the little boys won't be able to control themselves. And you find yourself in a situation. And I'm like, sweetheart, why don't we teach our little boys as well to respect women and to behave a certain way as well, so you know we can all have a very, you know, safe and loving environment. So we're imprinting this ideology of women being objects to men from such a young age, and it's sad that it's happening, you know, till this day. We have it in our culture till this day. You know, for example, in schools, girls aren't allowed to wear certain things because it might be distracting. And, you know, sometimes I wonder to myself, how is, you know, a shoulder blade sort of distracting towards boys? Or how is a girl wearing, you know, a tank top with a high-waisted jeans sort of, you know, distracting? Everybody goes to school, for example, to learn, to educate themselves. So if school is a place to educate, why don't you educate the boys and the male teachers to sort of behave themselves as well, to not be triggered by a shoulder blade or, you know, skin from girls? So I think we should also start, thinking about the ways that we teach kids, not only don't only tell your little girls to dress a certain way, behave a certain way, educate our little boys as well to respect girls, respect women from a young age as well. So it all comes down to it all comes down like when you're like a little kid, even like it starts from a very young age. So
I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier also with Marianismo. It's kind of the women are these gatekeepers to their sexuality, to even men's sexuality, so I have to dress a certain way not to provoke them.
Yeah.
right.
And it is so much pressure because if I like a cute
Right.
skirt or a cute top, as a teenager, I had to think, what will other people think or my
Exactly.
reputation.
Exactly.
And it may, I just want to wear it cute.
Because it's
Cute
cute. It's
outfits.
cute. You just want to wear it.
Exactly.
But yeah.
We put so much emphasis on it. It's to the point of, it being absurd and what we accept and don't accept. So, we from very young age, like, I saw this thing where it's like, oh, when you let your children like choose their own outfit and they end up looking like, a certain way. And then a lot of people were like, yeah, my daughter's like my daughter's like that, my daughter's like that. And then I'm like, okay, but the post was very clear about it being children in general. Because if you give children space to just be themselves, right? They might pick things that they find interesting and fun. And it shouldn't, what you were saying, what is important, that they look a certain way or that they feel comfortable doing whatever they're doing, be it education, be it going to a dinner party or whatever. And we punish people so much for choosing what they want to choose and being who they want to be that it almost makes us question at some point, like, do I really like the skirt or have I been conditioned to like skirts? It's very intense, and I'm happy that indeed the younger generation seems to be letting go from that a lot. There's a lot of like ugly things to social media, but I do have to say that this is the part that I love the most. So much being available. And I was talking to a friend's mom yesterday. She was like, oh, she just learned the term non-binary, and she was like, I don't want to say that in my time it didn't exist, but we just didn't have a word for it or we weren't exposed to it, right? But it didn't seem to bother her. It's just that, okay, this is like this new thing. And then, I was like, sometimes we put way too much thought into things and we don't have to. If people say tomorrow that they want to be, I don't know, identify as unicorn and somebody use that as like, what, am I supposed to accept that? Yeah, you should. If that person wakes up and that's what they want to identify with and whatever expression goes with that or doesn't,
Right.
and makes them be true to themselves, so fucking be it.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, it's true.
how does it affect you? But we are stuck in this loop that is bigger than us. I understand that. If we look at commercials, at TV, at movies, at products that are targeted to men and women, it's so expensive to be a woman. And like, do not get me wrong, I love hair products. I love like skincare products. I love it. I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy the process. I enjoy like seeing transformations, how one thing impacts like my pores or my split ends, I love it. But I also feel like I do not feel like these things, you have hair too. I always tell my dad, and I'm like, use conditioner, it's nice. And then he'll use it, and he's like, oh, it really feels nicer. And I'm like, yeah, it's
Yeah. Feels nice, doesn't it? Feels
right?
soft.
But it's hard, and I understand that it's hard to fight against that because it's so much bigger than us sitting here, and it's so much bigger than even if we all sit together and kind of try to work it out. But I do encourage you in everyday life to question things and to wonder where that idea is coming from. What Mandy just said, the Marianism, I'm so happy you explained that term today. I did not know it before today, and now I want to use it with like everyone. Like, is that coming from that or But we should, yes. So, Mandy, if you can give us like 3 things that people should keep in mind, especially in the month coming up. And I know we shouldn't just do it for this month, but at least like force ourselves to think a little bit, more about this topic. What are 3 things that you would want our people, our listeners, and for them to tell their people to work on, to think about?
Okay. So what I'm gonna share is kind of an anecdote of a couple of years ago when I was at the women's conference in Renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sitting next to these other women, and everything was going nice. The presentations, the vibes were good. And then I hear these ladies sitting next to me berating and speaking down on their server, another woman, and being very annoyed and loud because they didn't get their Coca-Cola or whatever. And it really made me think, we go to these conferences and we feel empowered, and then we use our power to belittle another woman that is not in the privileged position to attend a conference as, a guest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very important for us because I noticed that a lot of our popular feminism on Aruba, and there are different branches of feminism, but I feel like so much of it is focused on the self-empowerment, which is important, but not enough on solidarity and working class solidarity. And I'm not necessarily pro to have gender equality in the terms of CEOs and people in top level positions that will, at the end of it, exploit other women that are more marginalized and vulnerable. So I think it's important for us to have a view of not only me being important and earning all these accolades and these prestigious positions and jobs and titles, but also seeing other people around us that may not have as much privilege as we do. So I don't know if that is 3 things, but
Well,
important things.
I want to try to simplify it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you're targeting this whole idea that, a woman is a feminist only when she, or, that it equals women empowerment. But the moment that you are empowering, what you just said, a group of privileged women, and you do not take into account that there are other ways of being empowered and other ways of being hardworking, that does not necessarily mean you being in a suit and a CEO or in a super high position, then newsflash, you are not a feminist, and this is I know that this can be a little hard, but I think that, when we think about sex workers, for example, it's like, I believe that, women shouldn't do that because they are degrading, our fight. Are they? Why? So I think that you bringing that up, that the whole idea of just filling up these positions and then having like a 50-50, it's not where we should be thinking or focusing on solely. Of course, if that's your goal, you go do that, but do think about the people that are in less privileged situations and that they deserve the same respect.
And
Period.
I think in that kind of movement, and if it moves in that way, you're excluding so many other women,
Yep.
women that were not able to be invited to the conference,
Mm-hmm.
or women that even get a present or anything on the 8th of March from their employer. So I think I love that feminism is gaining more traction in Aruba, but there is so much work that needs to be done for people to be as inclusive as possible of every other person that isn't, a more middle class, upper middle class woman.
I agree. Thank you so much, Mandy, for that. Joshue, is there anything that you want to add to maybe what Mandy said, or things that you want us to keep in mind, right? As we finish February, and tomorrow is March 1st. So what is something that you want people to start the month thinking on, the week,
As I realize that the months are flying by,
Oh my gosh, yes.
time is moving so quickly. With that, I want to remind everyone that, life is moving at a very fast pace, and you should always take up space wherever you can to sort of, guide yourself into the person that you want to grow as, with a lot of positive intent and positive intentions to not only move forward into a much more happy and equal environment for yourself, but for everyone else. And, as a person who has been through a lot of judgments and coming from a place of where I never really felt confident within my feminine side, and now being in a place where I'm very happy and content with being able to express myself fully, I embrace every single person out there with a feminine side to not be afraid of it, but encourage it. There's a lot of power in, being feminine, being a woman. There's a lot of divine feminine power all around you. And it was very evident in historical figures and through time that, women are capable of doing a lot within this world. And no one should ever feel, because they are expressing themselves in a feminine way, that it's some sort of weakness. It is not. It is very empowering to be able to say that I have, a beautiful feminine side to me.
Yes.
And that you should always, encourage that. And in the great words of Dominique Jackson, when someone tells you that they can't accept it, just tell them, I don't need your acceptance. In order to have someone accept you is to allow them power over you. And the only person that has power over you is yourself. You're the only one that gets to push yourself into the direction that you want. However, I don't need your acceptance, but I will demand your respect. And you will respect me regardless of whether you see me, see what I see. If we are on the same page, you always have to respect someone, no matter how they choose to express themselves. So moving into the month of May, oh my God.
March. I know it's going really fast, but not that fast. I like immediately got anxiety.
Wait. So
But
moving
yes.
forward into the month of March, I do want everyone to embrace who they are, embrace their feminine power, embrace their womanhood, embrace just their beautiful self. And remember, you're beautiful inside and out.
Yes. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Yes. So let's keep that in mind, Femininity does not equal weakness. And I love how you explained that. Thank you so much. And Mandy, thank you too for leaving us with that. So I have kindness cards. Of course I do. But yes. So Joshue, I have one and I'll write your name in a little bit. But it says colors are brighter when you're around. I really got that vibe. Cute. Yes. So thank you. Thank you for being, willing to talk to me, coming to my show and just expressing your views. I really hope that people can resonate with it and learn, but also just have a thinking process. I think that's the most powerful thing that we can get from these episodes. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me.
It's pretty cute. And then Mandy, but I have felt this for a very long time. So I feel like this card is like very telling. But it says, I can tell that we are going to be friends.
Yeah. That's so cool.
But okay, so Mandy has been we have been social media friends for so long, and it's so nice to have you in the studio because I know that you're a little shy, and I know that it takes a little bit from you to step out of your comfort zone and sitting here and talking to me, but I appreciate it. I literally tell people about Mandy, my social media friend, so I just wanted you to know that.
I wish I had a card for you.
No worries. But yeah, so thank you to you two for being here and helping me out, figure out this women's series. You suggested some amazing people as well, so I am really excited for next week. Yes, please. She'll be here next week, but please.
So I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Paula Kebelar, a mentor, a supporter. So I hope everybody tunes in for her episode.
I am so excited for that. I mean, I'm excited about almost all of my episodes. But I mean, I'm really excited for next week too. You know, she's such a knowledgeable person, and the work that she has been doing, the work that she has done and is still doing is very meaningful for this particular, issue. And I can't wait to have these conversations with her next week as well. We will be talking about breaking the bias, which is this year's Women's Month theme, Women's Day theme. So we will go into that. Also, Jana Maduro will be here too. Jana, I hope that you're getting ready, because she also needed some time to see how she feels about being on a podcast. But she's also a fervent listener of Sincerely Carolina, so I'm really happy to have people that have been supporting this movement that I try to create, and then have them on here and just let them share in the way that they inspire me too. So thank you, Mandy, and I look forward to next week. Stay tuned. We will have I want to say 5 to 6 episodes on these talks. So today was one, and we'll talk about breaking the bias next week. The week after that, we will be talking about gender policies. So those are the upcoming episodes. Do not miss them. Remember that you can always rewatch or re-listen on your favorite platforms, anything like YouTube, Facebook, but also just Spotify. I do that. I have to say, I never rewatch my shows, but I do re-listen because I like listening to podcasts. Yeah. So look it up, Sopi Mix Studio, and look for the Sincerely Carolina playlist, and you will find them. Also, let me know. I still have one episode that I want to kind of feel what people want to talk about regarding women issues. Please let me know what you want to hear about, who I should be talking to. Okay, so you just heard the 2 upcoming episodes. Who should I be talking to? Who should I invite? Do you have a man that you think that should be part of this conversation, who really pushes these issues forwards? Do let me know. You can send me a message on Instagram. I think that might be the easiest way to find me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you have a nice week. I hope your weekend was fun, not too crazy. This is a pre-recorded episode, so I have no idea what will happen this weekend. Otherwise, I would have talked about something in the news. But I hope that you were able to stay safe. And, let's just... let's give it a thought. It's Women's History Month. Do the work. Become a better person. Choose to become a better person every day. Thank you to my awesome sponsors, Lindy, Proframe, Gelatissimo, and Neutrogena. Remember, you can win fun prizes on Wednesdays with Learn and Win Wednesday. So we will make a question out of today, and you're going to be able to win some prizes. Thank you, Sopi Mix Studio, for allowing me to talk about whatever I want to talk about. And I will see y'all next week. Bye.
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 Sincerely Carolina is powered by Lindy Boutique, Proframe, Gelatissimo, Neutrogena, and Purina.